Hello, welcome to episode 73 of the Epic Film Challenge to 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die, 1989's Glory, an American Civil War film starring Matthew Broderick, Morgan Freeman, Cary, Elwes, and Denzel Washington, who won the Best Supporting Actor Oscar for this film, and I can see why, because I thought he was great in the film. I knew nothing about the story. I knew it was a Civil War film, and I was expecting, based on the cast, that it would be kind of a big budget production, have some impressive battle scenes, things like that, but I wasn't expecting it to be as powerful as it was, not just because of the war scenes that were done so well, but because of the story. The story is about a man called Robert Gould Shaw, who was a soldier and an officer in the Union Army in the American Civil War in the 1860s, which is where the time frame the film is set in. And he commanded the first all-black regiment of the Union Army, the 54th Massachusetts, and that was kind of a monumental thing, that he took on that role to kind of train up these black men and to have them be kind of a regiment of their own, and to kind of have them go into battle, because he had them, he trained them, and well, not just him, but other men in his regiment and things like that. But the army itself was very reticent to let these black troops do anything, but manual labor. They didn't think they were ready for battle because they were black men, obviously. That was the thinking. And so this film is about, Robert Shaw's kind of efforts to bring a bit more equality into the situation. And it's a true story, and it's based on the letters that Robert Shaw had written to his mother while he was away on the battlefields and all that kind of stuff. I just thought it was a really powerful story. The film itself definitely layers on a lot of sentimentality, and kind of has a sweeping score that very much helps that, by James Horner, who an amazing composer, did some great work. And this is another fine score from him that really fit the film and gave it this grand sense of scale and patriotism, I suppose. And it had a noble touch to it, I think. And the acting was great. I think Matthew Broderick almost gave an excellent performance as Robert Gould Shaw. And Robert Shaw, was a guy in his early 20s, during this time. And that's a whole other part of the film that I found quite, powerful, is that you have these guys who are just kids, almost. Kids, and they're commanding troops, and they're commanding people who are older than them because they've been put in this situation. And I think it was because of his parents and the power that they had, but still, he gets thrust into this situation, and very much owns it, but part of his performance felt quite shaky, Matthew Broderick, and I don't know whether that was intentional. If it was, he did a great job, if that was intentional, but it was almost an excellent performance. He did very well. It was hard not to see Ferris Bueller at times, I have to admit. I do feel like he kind of suffered a bit from that film later on in his career, but for me anyway, because it's hard not to see him as Bueller. But I thought he did a commendable job in this, and really brought the character of Robert Shaw to life. When I say character, I mean his character as a man. Probably my favourite part of the film was the middle. None of the big battle scenes, but in the middle of the film, the black soldiers are told in the 54th they're going to get paid less than the white soldiers. And they revolt against this idea, and Denzel Washington's character very much leads the charge, tear up your papers, we want equal pay. And Robert Shaw said, yeah, I'm going to protest this. And he did, and that's a true story. He protested the pay of his black soldiers, and they eventually got equal pay, and got back pay, in fact. Until Congress would give them the correct pay, they protested that and campaigned against it. And I think that is an incredible move in the 1860s. Again, there could be stuff that happened before that was a big move for equality, and definitely afterwards, obviously. But I just thought that was a great story I'd never heard before, and I thought it was a really nice thing to hear. And the thing with these films is, when they have a true story and you're telling it in a film, especially a Hollywood film, there will be things that are embellished, there are facts that are fudged, there are things that are kind of put into the film or taken out of the film to make it a more enjoyable film experience. And that's fine to me, for the most part, as long as the spirit of the story is there. And I think that it is, I really do. And at the end of the film, I wanted to look up the real story, the real Robert Shaw. I think only Robert Shaw and another character are the only people who were, real life people who were in the film as characters. The rest were kind of just, creations. But I mean, again, the spirit of the thing should be there, I think. Because there are lots of different characters in the film who have different backgrounds and different kind of things to bring to the table. We kind of focus on about 4 of the black soldiers in the 54th, played by Morgan Freeman, Denzel Washington, and there's other 2 actors who I don't know the names of, but they're very good. And if you've seen the film, you know the 2 characters I'm talking about. There's the one who is very uneducated, but is good with a gun. I really liked his character. He showed a lot of heart in the film. And you also have a character who was friends with Robert Shaw growing up, and so as a free black man, he didn't have to do this, you know, and so he did it. And he's not a good soldier, and his story is great because he really has to try and do his best to fight for his country. And I found that quite endearing, even though my own stance on war is that I hate it and I really disagree with it in pretty much every form possible. I understand how it happens and why it happens, but you know, for me to kind of get behind the characters in this film who primarily are just very bravado and let's fight for our country and die for our country, I thought was quite a feat. And that's down to the performances, I think. Morgan Freeman plays a guy who has a family and is there to fight for his country, and Denzel Washington plays a guy who has no family, no home, and so he's very much kind of the soul of the film in a way, his character and the journey that he goes on as well. And there's a great scene where he's getting whipped for kind of trying to run away, and they used a kind of real whip. It was a special one that wouldn't really cut his back, but it was a real whip nonetheless. And so you're really seeing Denzel Washington getting whipped across the back as he's just looking at Matthew Broderick. And the close-ups on both characters was a really powerful moment. And I thought that that was probably the scene which won him the Oscar. And I can totally get behind that because I thought that he did a great job with the film. As I said, overly sentimental at times. You know, especially maybe the final shot of the film was a bit, you know, I suppose. I mean, I think it's a great message. The final shot of the film, if you've seen it, I think really resonates, and you can look at that shot, it sums up so much and says so much that we can take today and use in our lives today, I think. You know, it's a very simple image of you know, a white man and a black man kind of joined together in one way or another. And I think that that is a powerful message, but it is laying it a bit thick, so you have to be prepared for that when it comes to this film. There are moments where your eyes might roll, but I think that the heart of it is really what matters, and the spirit of it. And this, you know, again, this fight for equality in a lot of cases, you know, Robert Shaw wanting to get his men on the battlefield, wanting to get his men equal pay, and it's a true story. And again, even if the facts are fudged, it can inspire you to look up all the real facts that you want and kind of read into it. And I think that is an important thing, because this young man, Robert Shaw, did an incredible thing, I think. Just that part about the pay, I think, is an incredible thing that a human being did. And for his story to be told in a major way like this in a Hollywood film, I think is brilliant. So I think that for everything you can take away from the film, for maybe being a bit too corny, you can kind of give back on the intentions and the spirit of it. The production was incredible. You know, it's a credit to the people who made this film. The production design, the scale of it, the scope, the way it was shot, you know, very, very good. You really get a sense of the scale. The battle scenes are incredible. There's a scene at the beginning, the Battle of Antietam, I believe, where a soldier's head gets blown up, and it's like, it's shocking. It's really shocking, and it kind of sets a tone for the rest of the film. But you never see anything as graphic as that, and so it really just, it hits you right in the face. This is a serious film, and this is what happens in war. People die, you know, and so it really it settles you in, like I said, to that feeling of this is going to be a serious story about serious wars where people died, and I thought that was a very effective moment in the film. There's a lot of good scenes that I really enjoyed. The camaraderie between the black troops was you know, was fun to see, and ultimately by the end, moving and powerful when they go on their final battle at the end. And I don't want to spoil what happens at the end, but you know, the true story is out there, and I think that they did well in not shying away from what really happened, and staying true to the story and to the heart of those men who fought. And that's just something that I never thought I'd say, the heart of the men who fought. But you know, with me and war, you know, I just find it utter insanity. I do, you know, that you can kill someone and it's okay because someone who has power says so. But again, it's all these people who are put into this situation, and they kind of got no choice, and they have to do it. So it is fight or flight, and if you take flight, you're going to get killed anyway. So it's just horrific. I find war such a stain on humanity. How did we let ourselves get that far? It's unbelievable. It really is. And this film doesn't shy away from that, like many great war films. And this film is almost a great war film. I don't think it's like a masterpiece, but it's an excellent film, I think. The message that it gives you by the end of the film is more important than anything you could kind of pick apart about the brass tacks of the rest of the film, I think. So, yeah, and Robert Shaw. I hate to kind of focus on the white man in the story, but, you know, he was someone who very early on was making steps towards equality, even if they were very, very tiny steps, you know. I mean, it's not an overarching kind of, you know, free the slaves, but definitely a bold move to protest against equal pay for all his black soldiers, and I thought that was a brilliant move by the guy himself, you know. So, Glory, is it a film you must see before you die? Absolutely, if only that it inspires you to read up more about, you know, maybe the American Civil War itself, but also the 54th and Robert Gould Shaw and what he did and what his men did and what they fought for. That wasn't me getting emotional, I just got, my throat got a bit blocked up. So yes, Glory is definitely a film you should see before you die. And definitely one I'll be revisiting over the years, and I think it would probably hold a place amongst my favourite war films. I don't think it's up there with the best, but the battle scenes were fantastic, as well as the rest of the story, and the acting, the performances. Morgan Freeman was very good, as always. This was early on in his kind of mainstream career, I suppose. In fact, this probably was his first big movie. Very good to see him in the film. You know, he's just so solid, as always. And even some of the principal cast, like Morgan Freeman, Denzel Washington, Matthew Broderick, they're storming this battlefield, and there are these explosions going off right next to them. I mean, it's very well done, but I mean, there has to be some element of danger there. I mean, it's not real shells, but it's still something getting blown up right next to them, and so the choreography had to be so perfect, and but also a lot of bravery from the actors to be storming across this beach, knowing that there are explosives in the ground ready to go off, and if you don't hit your mark, you're going to get blown up in one way or the other. I mean, it might just burn you slightly, but still, there's an element of danger there, and I think Matthew Broderick said that something to the effect of he didn't need to act that much in the battlefield scenes because it was so scary with everything, all this noise going off and everything. So, yeah, another part of the film that was done really well. I like a lot of great war films. So, that is it. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video.